Alright, Jake Paul vs. Tommy Fury is finally here, and it's time for a final prediction.
He's done it from time to time. Just haven't been.
From the United Kingdom, the Nightmare.
So Jake Paul vs. Tommy Fury is just a few days away, and it looks like it's actually gonna happen. If it doesn't happen and I just jinxed it, I'm gonna be pretty upset. That's terrible. There have definitely been times through this build-up that I thought the fight was going to fall through, just as it did many times before. Especially with Tommy Fury pulling out of the press conference last week. I thought that was a pretty bad sign. But it looks like he's made his trip there, and everyone's there now. We're all set to go, just a few more days. Alright, so I'm going to go over what I think each fighter is going to have to overcome in order to win this fight. And then I'm going to tell you my final prediction for this Jake vs. Tommy fight, finally. And I honestly do think this fight is going to be close. I think a lot of people are underestimating Tommy here. I do see some people on Tommy's side saying he's going to run through Jake Paul, but the majority of the comments I see from people say Jake Paul is going to win. That's the narrative I've seen, and I feel like most people are predicting Jake Paul to win. And I think people are counting out Tommy just a little bit here. I do think Tommy is the more technically skilled boxer with more training experience and an amateur background. And I do think one of the keys here for Tommy is to stay active with his jab, which I do think is his game plan already. Tommy has to keep a high pace because Jake Paul's never really had to go against someone who fights at a high pace. Most of his opponents have kind of just matched Jake's pace, and it kind of makes him more comfortable and lets him fight in the way he wants to. But Tommy doesn't have the knockout power that Jake does, so he's going to have to outbox him to win this fight. But I do have two big worries when it comes to Tommy winning this fight. The first one is just the moment being way too big for Tommy and he folds under the pressure. That's one of my worries. And the second worry is Tommy's past opponents. Tommy is under a lot of pressure here with this whole family pretty much saying they're going to disown him if he loses this fight. And everyone's saying the loser of this fight pretty much has to retire, which isn't really true, but that's just the narrative that they're running. I think Jake Paul can handle that narrative a lot better than Tommy can. And that Tommy has never been in this big of a fight with all this attention on him. I think this is something brand new to him, and I don't necessarily think he's ready for it. And then his past opponents, I don't think he's ever fought anyone as good as Jake Paul. As much as Tommy loves to critique Jake Paul's past opponents, if you really look at his, I think they're worse. He has fought mostly bums, and he hasn't really put too many guys away, guys that he should have put away. I do think this is a big jump for Tommy, and it's going to have to take him some time in the ring to adjust. Because I do think that the Tyron Woodley fight and the Anderson Silva fight are a level opponent for Jake Paul that Tommy has never faced before. So I do hope Tommy's been having a good camp. He claims this is the best camp he's ever had. I hope he's going against top level guys, but even with sparring, it is different going into a spar than it is actually going into the ring on fight night. But now going into my worries for Jake Paul, I really only have one worry here for Jake Paul when it comes to him winning the fight. And I would say that it's the fact that this really is the first boxer that Jake Paul has gone against. Yes, I did say that Silva and Woodley were tougher opponents, but they did have a different fight style than a typical boxer. And so adjusting from fighting all these MMA guys to a boxer in Tommy Fury does make me curious to see how Jake Paul's going to handle it. Alright, actually, I just thought of a third worry for Tommy Fury. My third worry is that if this fight becomes a close one, does Tommy Fury have the same heart that Jake Paul does? Does he really want it as much as Jake? Because Jake has proven that. Jake has proven that he's not going to give up in a fight. Jake is a hard worker, and even if he is down in this fight, you know he is not going to give up until the fight is over. And I really don't know if Tommy has that in him. I think that if it comes down to it, and this just becomes a dogfight, I don't know if Tommy has it in him to really push himself and want it more than Jake Paul does. Maybe he does. Maybe I'm wrong here. And it could be answered on this upcoming fight. We don't know. We'll see. So I do think there's a chance that Jake Paul does get outboxed and that Tommy is able to win this fight. But that's really the only worry here I have for Jake Paul. And because of the fact that I just named 3 big worries for Tommy Fury to win this fight, and only one thing for Jake Paul, I think it's pretty obvious where my prediction's going to go here. I do think Jake Paul is going to win this fight. I think this moment is going to be a little bit too big for Tommy Fury. I think he's underestimating Jake Paul. And if it becomes a close fight, I don't think Tommy Fury is going to want it more than Jake does. So my prediction for this fight is Jake Paul round 4 knockout. Like I said, I could be wrong here. I think Jake's going to win it. I do see a future where Tommy Fury wins this fight, but I think the chances are kind of small, and I don't really see it happening at the end of the day. But don't get me wrong, I don't think it's going to be an easy fight for Jake Paul. I don't think he's going to go out there, outclass him, and just knock him out in the first round. I do think it's going to be a little tough. I think it's going to have a little bit of back and forth. Maybe Tommy will even win a couple of the first rounds. But I do think Jake Paul is going to find a home for that right hand. And I don't know if Tommy's going to be able to eat that. In fact, I doubt it. So yeah, round 4 knockout for Jake Paul. Let me know what your guys' predictions are. Am I off here? Is Tommy really going to be the one to win this fight? Subscribe for more boxing content if you feel like it. Thank you for watching. Peace.